Dragon Quest is one of the largest, if not the largest, RPG franchise out there. This is especially true in Japan, where its popularity is unmatched. Even outside of the realm of gaming, The Adventure of Dai manga is a bestseller. I figured that my channel would probably need a theme going forward, at least for a while, so I decided to do the best thing and play through the entire mainline Dragon Quest franchise, here, on my channel, and make videos on it for all of you. Now, being honest, I'm not so sure I want to do all that. During the making of this video, I suffered severe burnout because I just genuinely did not enjoy most of my time playing the game. And we consider with all the other actually good games coming out, not only at this time, but also in the near future, it became really hard to sit back and play through. But I'll push through and be sure to do so as fast as I can. So join me as I talk about Dragon Quest for like the next year or so. Starting off, we have the original Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior as it was called in the West. While over in Japan, it was the first console RPG and began influencing an entire industry. And okay, so while making this, I actually wanted to preface this. I discovered it while making the video. It is not the first console RPG. There was actually a game called Dragon Stomper on the Atari 2600. It came out a few years before this. I don't see anyone talk about it or even acknowledge it, but it's a turn-based RPG on the Atari 2600. Just want to point that out. I don't hear anyone talk about it. But back to Dragon Quest. Here in America, we didn't get the game until Dragon Quest III was already out. This means we did get some improvements for the English version, like having omnidirectional sprites, but overall, it didn't quite land like some other games coming out did, especially games like the original Final Fantasy. The game also lacked many features that we now consider commonplace on RPGs. We could only save in one area, the castle. There was no party, items were very limited, and there was only one side quest in the entire game. And to finally top it all off, we only fight one enemy at a time. This wasn't too crazy back when it released, but when you compare it to many modern RPGs, and even other games on the same platform, it looks very basic in comparison. But enough with the history. Let's get started with the game itself. We have a pretty basic title screen, nothing too impressive. We name our character and start the game. Here we are at Tantegel Castle, where the king gives us a brief rundown of our duty and sends us on our way. He gifts us with 3 chests, and after that, we're on our own. This small room is like a tutorial area of sorts on how to move, talk, and use items, because unlike many newer games, Dragon Quest operates under a command menu, so when you want to talk to someone, you need to walk up to them, face them, open the menu, and select talk. The Japanese version even had you select which direction you were talking due to them not having omnidirectional sprites. To open the chests on the ground, you need to stand on top of the chest and select the option from the menu to open the chest. Opening doors are also similar to how talking to NPCs are done. We head to the stairs, select stairs from the menu, and head out, entering Castletown. There are a lot of NPCs here, and you'll want to talk to a lot of them, but for right now, the most important one is this man in the bottom corner. He will refill our magic, so when it comes to grinding, especially early in the game, he becomes indispensable. Now, when you're ready to leave town, simply walk out of boundaries, and we'll get sent to the overworld. Alright, so we know that our ancestor, Erdrick, defeated demons with an orb of light, and that now the Dragon Lord has hidden it away and the princess is missing. We should probably go and find them, except as soon as we leave town we immediately get set upon by monsters, so we should probably take some advice from the one castle guard and head to the east, where we can buy some equipment from this town. Until you learn a healing spell, this town is your only source of rest. Luckily, it isn't too expensive, and it's only like 2 feet away from the castle, so there's plenty of time to save and grind. I do recommend resting here when your HP gets low, because whenever you die, you actually end up losing half of your gold. And when you're in the early game like this, you might want to save up as much gold as you need, because you're going to need to buy a bunch of equipment. Spend some time leveling and buying whatever equipment you need, and then after learning a healing spell, the inn becomes completely useless. Just return to Castletown and talk to the old man to refill your MP and heal yourself. It may only save 3 gold, but like I said, in the early game you want to save every cent you get. Once properly leveled and equipped, we need to get moving. It's dangerous to cross the bridges for right now, so for the time being, just stay within this landmass and head to the northwest. To the northeast, we'll find this cave, and it's the only cave in the game with no enemies. It serves as a basic tutorial on how to use the torch and other items, but otherwise the only importance here is this tablet at the end. It's a message from Erdrick to you, his descendant, letting you know that 3 items are needed to reach the Isle of Dragons to the south of Bercanery. These 3 items are now entrusted to worthy keepers, and are protected until it's time for us to go and find them. Well, I think that this time is now, so we should probably seek out these keepers. Keep heading northwest until we reach the town of Garenham. The town was built by a wandering minstrel named Garen and is home to some more shops and information. Here we'll figure out that Princess Gwaelin is hidden away in a cave to the east. Well, all the enemies that way are far stronger than what we've encountered so far, so spend some more time grinding and getting new spells and equipment before proceeding. The inns get more expensive the farther we progress, and since most enemies here give very little money, I recommend trying to save whatever you can afford. When you're ready, we can finally head to the east, where things begin to ramp up exponentially. We eventually reached the town of Cole, and I was level 7 with very good gear at the time, and things ended up feeling very evenly balanced for me, so I'd recommend getting to this point before reaching town. Gathering some more information, we hear that the South Island, most likely referring to the Isle of Dragons, is very dangerous. And yeah, I agree. It's called the Isle of Dragons. I'm assuming it's for a good reason. There's a town east of Hawksnest that sells really good weapons, and we end up meeting someone who recognizes us as Erdrick's descendant. But they don't help us because we don't have strong enough gear yet. You know, for a guy that just likes to hide inside of a little poison puddle, like, I feel like anyone brave enough to go over there should probably be counted, but yeah, you know, whatever, man, just do what you do. Another NPC demands that we show proof before claiming we're Erdrick's descendant, which actually makes far more sense. And then finally we get a statement saying that there's a town called Rimuldar to the south, and that Rimuldar is the place to buy keys. Finally, we have some clear direction here. A lot of the game so far has been us going to towns, gathering some information and heading out, so now that we know we can buy some keys, we should head there and start unlocking all the doors we have encountered along the way. After eventually making it to Rimuldar, we can gather that the Stone of Sunlight is in Tantagel Castle, most likely behind a locked door, given that we haven't found it yet. There are a couple more NPCs here, but none that are useful to us at this moment. Make our way back to Tantagel with at least 1 key and we can start the quest for real. Back in Tantagel, there are only a couple of doors we can open. This one on the left only has some gold inside and then a knight that tells us not to steal, but you know, you can just ignore him, he won't do anything. The one on the right, however, opens up the second key shop for us. It's a bit more pricey than the one in Rimuldar, but its convenience will most likely make up for that price if you choose to use it. While we're here, we also find an NPC searching for the cellar, which given that it's hard to find, might be where the Stone of Sunlight is hidden. Searching around and passing through this rainbow death floor will let us talk to this knight, letting us know to visit the grave of Garen in Garenham. We will take care of that later, but for now, let's focus on finding that cellar and gathering the Stone of Sunlight since we're here. Or at least, that's what I would like to do. See, I didn't realize that leaving the area causes doors to respawn, and since I used all of my keys to open them, the doors are just locked again, meaning I had to take another trip to Rimuldar and gather some more keys to keep this adventure going. I'm not a big fan of backtracking, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I grinded for a bit to make sure I have the money to buy enough keys and then bought as many as I could. While there, I checked out this old guy behind the locked door who will let me know of a secret item next to the well in Cole. Well, I guess since I'm going to Cole anyways on my way back, and it's the clearest direction that I've gotten, I might as well log it. Journey back to Cole and pick up the fairy flute. Other NPCs in the area have informed me that this will be useful to defeat the golem, so let's just take it and hold on to it for now. The golem will likely still put up a fight, and the town we've been told to use it in is still some ways off. After this, we'll finally make our way back to Tantagel, so we can enter the cellar and retrieve the Stones of Sunlight. After receiving the Stones of Sunlight, I head back over to Garenham where we can enter our first proper dungeon. As always, with older RPGs, you need to come prepared. Make sure you wear good gear and bring some healing herbs to preserve MP because this place is a maze and the encounter rate is pretty high. I personally recommend being level 10 or higher because that way we have access to Stop Spell. There are enemies here that like to cast magic, and I especially want you to be able to use it on the Warlocks because the last thing you want to do is be put to sleep and then get hit 5 turns in a row and end up dying. Stop Spell doesn't prevent attacks, but it does prevent spells, and it doesn't wear off like sleep does. So as long as you use it for enemies that, deal strong magic damage, or for enemies that keep putting you to sleep, you should be fine. When we're ready to enter the unlocked door to this building, we can head inside where we can find some chests, one of which has a torch we can use instead of your magic to illuminate the dungeon if you personally prefer. There's also a locked door with 2 guards inside, but they do literally nothing. So, just save the key and get moving. Going through a secret passage, out the back door, and into the dungeon where we need to navigate this labyrinth, and eventually we'll make our way to the Lyre. There isn't much else to do here, and there are only some chests sitting on the first floor, but otherwise the only real rough parts are the final floors, where enemies are noticeably stronger than the first 2 floors. Get the Lyre, and head to your way back out. There is no free teleport or exit on the bottom floor, so either use a wing or journey back on foot. Either way, we have the Lyre, and we used it to give it to the old man in the Shrine West of Cold, causing him to immediately disappear and leave us with the chest containing the Staff of Rain. Now, I didn't realize it when I was playing the game, but I realized it when I was playing the Game Boy Color version, and it's apparently still a thing in the NES version. You can use the Lyre to actually activate random encounters, so if you needed to grind a little bit, keep that Lyre on you and don't trade it for the Staff of Rain just yet. Just, need a little bit of extra random encounter, just pop that, you're good to go. But now that we have 2 of our key items obtained, we should make a move on and get around to rescuing the princess. So, let's head back to the Caves of Rimuldar, and this time, we'll do some exploring. We'll eventually find a green dragon blocking our path, and he's fairly strong. Keep putting him to sleep and healing yourself whenever you can, and you'll get his health broken down in no time. Defeating him, we can now rescue the princess and bring her back to Tantagel Castle, where she will give us an item called Gwaelin's Love. It is entirely optional and not necessarily beat the game, however, it does tell you your exact coordinates in relation to the castle. While this seems pointless now, it becomes very useful later on. Just trust me on this. Now that we've rescued the princess, we should get a head on to go fight the golem. So head to the southeast, and we'll just run the one little issue. The enemies in that region are fierce and won't go down quietly. You can use the fairy water to temporarily start random encounters, or you can just suffer through the grinding. It's up to you. But once at the town, we'll see the golem, and use the fairy fluid to put him to sleep and just start wailing on him with all you have. If he wakes up, you can either try to put him back to sleep, or just fight through the pain, and we'll eventually defeat him and reach the town. It's around this point that I started to tune out with the game. The grinding was annoying before, but now I was wearing the best armor available outside of Erdrick's armor, and I could only defeat some enemies with no problem. I could go to one region and be perfectly fine, only to go to the next and end up having enemies that dealt 20 plus damage. And while I've never been a fan of grinding in RPGs, this was literally just nothing but grind from start to finish, and it unfortunately was a massive issue for me. The idea of fighting the same enemies who all use the same strategy, making no progress for hours until I finally level up, was just not enjoyable for me. But whatever, we made it to town. This is Mercado, and is some of the best equipment that we can find in the game. Most of the shops here don't have anything special, just basic stuff like herbs and armor, and, it's all stuff we've seen before. Behind this locked door, however, we can find another man that sells magic keys, and any merchant that can sell us the Flame Sword and Silver Shield, the best equipment that you can purchase. Buy what you need, and head towards this big square in the middle of town. There's actually an entire garden or something in here, and to the south of it, we'll find an old man behind this magic death door, letting us know the exact coordinates of a key item. You see? Told you rescuing the princess would be important. I was unfortunately kind of stupid on my way back and ended up dying, but that's fine. I leveled myself fairly high, so the trip back isn't too rough. I returned to town, bought the flame sword, and learned that Urgic's armor was held by Wynne, and that he buried it beneath a tree behind a shop in Hawksness. Unfortunately, Hawksness and the surrounding area is horrible, and filled with enemies strong enough to crush me in the paste. Remember the green dragon that we fought to rescue the princess? That's a random encounter here. So rather than immediately jump into Hawksness, I say we go gather the last item that we need first. First off, let's get Erdrick's token. It's really close to Cantlin, but the enemies around here, including that green dragon, are real pieces of work. Use the clues from the princess to find the exact location of the token, which happens to be inside a poison swamp because, I don't know, Erdrick like to bathe in poison or something. I really don't know. Just grab it and get out of there as soon as you can, because the last thing you need is get surprised by a wizard and put to sleep, because it's been a very long journey out here and we'd rather not do it all over again. Once you have Erdrick's token and are properly leveled, we can finally head to Hawksness, which is closer to the castle than Mercado, but once I get inside, you'll see why I told you to wait. The town is empty, with no NPCs at all and only a few buildings, filled with poison swamps and with enemies lurking within. The enemies in question, the same kind that are over near Cantlin. The Dragon Lord has destroyed the town, although for reasons not yet revealed to us. The enemies are strong, but at our current level and with our gear, we should be able to fight them off and obtain Erdrick's armor, the strongest armor in the game. It's time to prepare for the final battle. Head back along the path to Rimbledar and then continue south until you reach the staircase. Enter and you'll be at the shrine where we can combine our items into the rainbow drop. If you have all the items, just simply talk to the old man and he'll take them from you, and we can now make the journey north to this little peninsula where we can use the rainbow drop to create a bridge, allowing us to enter the other side, where we can finally get to the Dragon Lord's castle and put an end to his reign of terror. Take whatever time you would need to grind up and be ready for the adventure, because all the enemies in here are the strongest in the game, and we don't have Erdrick's sword yet, as it's hidden within the castle itself. Go behind the throne and we'll find a hidden staircase that leads into the actual dungeon. From here, we want to navigate through these rooms until we find a hidden room with a chest inside. The chest contains none other than Erdrick's sword itself. And now that we have it, the Dragon Lord doesn't stand a chance. I will take this opportunity to either return to Rimbledar to rest and heal up, or go all the way back to Tantagel to save, because most of the enemies here are rough. While Erdrick's armor does have great regen, and we are maxed out, the occasional blue dragon can really kill your vibe, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. Gather the last of the supplies we need, and we can get back on our quest. If you are level 19 or above, you'll have access to Hurt More, which would vary usefulness depending on your stats, but personally I found them useful on the knights and golems, and not much else. By this point you should be able to just tank anything, difficult as it might be. I did eventually make my way to the Dragon Lord himself, and he offered me half the world to rule at his side. But that's dumb, because why do I be content with that? After everything that I've been through, you're gonna offer me only half? No, you gotta give me a little bit extra, man. I've killed, like, so many of your guys to get here. Come on. Cut me some slack. I was level 19 the first time I attempted to fight, and I only dealt 6 damage per hit on his second phase, which is just insane. I left again to grind some more because I did the math, and unless I got lucky, I was just not going to survive. He dealt too much damage per hit, and he has very high resistance to every spell. Coming back around after grinding some more and hitting level 20, I took another shot. Just like last time, his first form went down with barely any struggle, and we moved on to his second form. His fire breath dealt massive damage, but as long as I healed myself whenever my health went below 40, I trusted myself to make it, and I did. I defeated the Dragon Lord with maybe 1 or 2 turns left before dying since I had no more MP left to heal, but I did it. I defeated the Dragon Lord, obtained the Orb of Light, and was able to make my journey back home. You can actually stop at the towns during this section and they will congratulate you for everything you've done, but from what I saw, none of them had anything interesting to do. It's just a nice little touch. We journey back to the castle, where the king awaits and offers us his kingdom. But after thinking, we reject his offer. For if we're going to rule, it shall be on a land that we found on our own. Princess Gwaelin decides to come along with us, and together we set off in the new world. A fitting end for the game, for just as the hero founded his own kingdom, the game founded its own franchise and its own legacy. It didn't just copy the PC RPGs at the time, it started its own, and each game of the original trilogy learned and improved on the last, forming its own prosperous kingdom in a sense. And even though in the beginning it was rough, what that kingdom became is nothing short of deserving of its legacy. Even here, as much as I've stated my dislike for the game due to its excessive grinding and clunkiness, I won't deny its legacy, or act like there isn't something there that could draw you in. During my playthrough of the NES version, I even went out and bought myself the Game Boy Color version, and I found myself actually liking it. Even though the game hasn't changed too much on a fundamental issue, every issue that I had with the game was fixed, and it got even more with the little details that I did enjoy, so I know that the game has potential. Playing through the NES version reminded me why I play retro games to begin with, and especially older entries and influential games. For as much as the game caused me inconceivable pain and sent me into a spiraling depression, I can't help but end it on a high note and look forward to Dragon Quest II. It might be clunky and rough around the edges, and it might be extremely grindy, but it's a memorial of how far we've come, and I wouldn't have it any other way.